Welcome back to County Connection. I'm Jason Gray, and I'm sitting down today with Chris Prager from the Campbell County Fire Department. And I think this month, just kind of general fire safety, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. We just want to really bring out, it's still wintertime. It's going to be wintertime for a little while, and roads are terrible some days. That's the easiest way to put it. Accidents can happen when you least expect it, especially on icy, windy roads. So the biggest thing we want to make sure everybody knows is just travel safe. Sometimes it's better to drive a little slower and pay attention, turn off cruise control, and just make sure that you're taking care of yourself and those that are next to you on the road. Things, especially during large snowstorms, which have happened in the history of Campbell County, things to maybe have in your vehicle would be some extra water, some blankets, or sweatshirts. Maybe a small collapsible shovel or something, so if you happen to go off the road, you can dig yourself out, at least into an area where you can kind of get some wiggle room for your vehicle, depending on how bad it is. The big thing to remember is if you do end up getting stuck in a snowstorm is to try and call 911 and make sure that everybody knows exactly where you're at. Pay attention when you're on the roads to mile markers, or even kind of the sites around you, landmarks. And really just try and help pinpoint exactly what you need. And if you ever do get stuck, make sure that if you're going to run your car for heat, the exhaust and everything is clear, because that's the last thing you really want, exhaust coming back into your vehicle or anything like that. And so really just to take care of yourself when you're on the road, because it's not just you, it's everybody else around you. And then really the next portion would be homes. A lot of people spend more time at home in the wintertime. It's cold. You don't really want to go outside as much, which is fair. But people do like to do things like grill in the wintertime. Use your smoker. You know, while it's not summertime barbecuing, it's barbecue food. Most people enjoy that. So the big thing we tell everybody is make sure your grills are clean, make sure your propane and everything is the way it's supposed to be, make sure your pellet cups and everything, if you're using a pellet burner, is cleaned out, and so you're not having any potential problems. Something that I've seen more so, and you see it online now with everybody recording what's happening, is like wet pellets. They're left out and snow gets into your pellet hopper. When you get wet wood, you get more smoke, less heat. Which then you could have a backfire or a little, really kind of a small explosion when you get heat build up into smoke. And that's something that you try to avoid for the most part, stuff like that. So just maintaining covers on them. And then when you want to use them, follow manufacturer specifications for moving them away from anything that can burn. The last thing that really people think about is fire in wintertime. It's snow, it's cold. What are the chances? Complacency really leads to a larger chance of that happening. So take care of your equipment and pay attention. And then inside of a home, we talked about smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors. Now we can talk about some of those appliances that really produce those things. So your furnaces. Gas appliances, they obviously create an exhaust, which has carbon monoxide in it. So making sure that your exhaust piping from your appliances are clear is wonderful. If you're using a wood fireplace, make sure your chimney is clean. You're using the appropriate size wood logs. Make sure you're using seasoned firewood. Because you're going to produce more creosote if you have wet wood, which creosote is carbon, which burns. And as it goes up the chimney and cools, it goes from a gas to a liquid, and it runs down and then it solidifies in your chimney, and that's where a chimney fire could come from. So really making sure if you're burning just seasonally, you're just trying to do ambiance and really just to take off that cold edge. General cleaning rule would be once or twice a season, depending on what type of wood you're burning. Hardwoods burn a little better, softwoods burn not as well and create a little more creosote. Also seasoning of the wood. Has it been outside for a year after it was chopped down? Now, whether that's in rain, sun, snow, it's still losing moisture overall because it can't continuously to absorb the moisture from the earth. So that's seasoning, essentially. If it's been seasoned for a year, generally pretty good with those kinds of woods. Now, when you're looking at like pines and firs, you get more sap, you get more creosote, more things that are come off, so then you might have to clean your chimney a little more. So each what each other enjoys. But then you're looking at things that aren't heat producing, so you don't necessarily think about, like a dryer.
I mean, a dryer is sort of heat producing, right? It makes heat to dry your clothes.
Yes, but you're not using it to produce heat, so a lot of the time, maintenance can definitely become a second nature, especially in the wintertime. So when you're thinking about it, you've got your exhaust tubing. Now, everybody's just slightly different. Some of them, it's 2 feet and then it's outside of your house and it's really easy to clean. Others, like mine personally, it's like a 12-foot run where it comes up and then it runs all the way out the back of my house. And so cleaning that regularly is a big deal. And that can really help with the efficiency of a dryer. Especially newer dryers, they like when they can just exhaust the way they're supposed to. And if you get lint buildup or anything built up in those hoses, because you've seen the flexible hoses that are connected, right? Some of them are hard hoses. They're solid hoses that run through, or solid piping that runs through their house. Like mine is half and half essentially.
Sure.
So I've got about 6 feet of that flexible hoses that lead up to a solid hose that runs out. And then it's about 8 to 10 feet, I think, after that. But either way, it's good to try and either have someone come out and clean it, or you can buy a brush online, attach it to a drill,
Sure.
and then you can clean it out yourself. The good thing is just to remove that, because as moisture builds up in lint, it kind of becomes packable, and then it sticks to surfaces, and then you have less exhaust going out, so your dryer works harder, which means you're going to start putting more and more into trying to keep that dryer going. So sometimes you're going to have to run it twice. And I've had that question before as well. Yeah, lately I've had to run it twice. Well, it's probably clogged somewhere. So if you're not comfortable doing it yourself, then I would say hire somebody to do so for you. But those can definitely start fires. When you have lint buildup in a metal tube and you have nothing but extreme heat blowing onto it, it slowly starts to smolder. That smolder turns into a little more of a small fire. It's now got all the fuel it wants because it's got lint. And from there, you've got a fire behind your dryer.
Yeah.
Smoke in your house, you're trying to figure out what's going on, and then you got to deal with anything that comes from there. So really maintaining your appliances are really well. And then as far as like a water heater, while you may not have to do anything to clean it out for vent, or if you have a gas water heater, maybe make sure that ventilation is clear, but just areas around those heat producing appliances, right?
Right.
So a furnace, a water heater, most manufacturers would say anywhere from like 12 to 36 inches clear all the way around it, because it's a heat producing appliance. You don't want anything that could burn around it.
Sure.
Just in case something fails, it gives it a little buffer zone.
Right.
Now each manufacturer is different, so you're gonna have to read the manual, but little things like that could really save quite a bit of heartache later on. Outside of that, it's just your normal appliance checks. Make sure your oven is clean, make sure you're using it appropriately, your air fryers, your instant pots, your toaster ovens, things like that. Like you just use it as it's intended to be used to make sure your distances from where it's supposed to be are maintained. And generally, it's a good rule of thumb because they're listed and tested devices to where if you follow manufacturer specifications, you shouldn't have any issues. I say shouldn't because there are always manufacturer defects, unfortunately.
Sure.
So ultimately, if anybody has any questions or concerns, they're free to call the fire station and speak to anybody as far as what are good tips for them. We'll be able to do that and try and answer as many questions to the best of our ability.
All right. Anything else for February?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you so much for having me.